Hello everyone, welcome to another video. On this video, I'm going to talk about the change detection strategy in Angular. So this is a change detection strategy in the Angular website. It's written a couple of these here and it also has a couple of the example on change detection strategy. But I'm going to explain a little bit more about how it really going to work in Angular. So I have a project here which is created in localhost 4200 and this is my the Angular app which is creating from the CLI. So what I'm gonna do at this time is I'm gonna clear all my HTML and I'm gonna save as a test so I can see it here. And I'm gonna generate a component here. So I'm gonna generate a new component. So ng generate me a component. So the component gonna be a parent component, and I'm gonna generate a change component. Not change, sorry, the child component. All right. Okay, so I have a parent here and a child component, and I have app.html. So this is sorry, this is an app component. So an app component, I'm gonna call the parent, and on parent component, I'm gonna call the child. I'm gonna save this, and I'm gonna save this. So it says that parent works and child work. So what happened is when the change detection strategy will work, when will the change detection will work, right? So the first thing what will really happen in Angular is whenever it changes like an event, whenever it trigger like an event or a promises or observable, then John.js will trigger the change the detection strategy. So by default, the Angular use the change that detection strategy default, which is a one here, and it's using the default version. So whenever you change something on ng model or maybe on a promises or observable, then it will work because Angular will tell their child component that it's been working uh, because it's using a default one. But if you want to use your own change detection strategy, then you can use on push. And what happen if you use on push, then the Angular will not detect any like observables events or any promises that you have to tell that Angular that I am using the kind of like observable, then you need to change in a view. Uh, so to explain this more, I'm gonna go in directly in code, I guess. So here I created a parent and a child, as you know. So now I'm gonna show you guys how it really works. So on the app.html, what I'm really gonna do here is I'm gonna create your input field here, and the type is going to be text. And I'm gonna bind with the ng model here. And this going to be the ng model is going to be a food. All right. I'm gonna save this. Now it's gonna give me an error because the first thing is I need to create this, and I'm gonna save it here. And it's going to give me another error because I haven't import the forms modules on my modules here. All right, so I'm going to import the form modules, and I'm going to import that. From Angular. All right, I'm going to save it. F capital, okay, uppercase here, okay, save. Now if I refresh this, then it shows parent and child works. But if I go in HTML, I haven't saved this, I think. So now I have an input box right here, and this is this input box. So input box has a parent here, and parent also has a child. So now what I'm gonna do is to show how the change detection will work is I'm gonna go in parent. I'm gonna create a function here called trigger parent. All right, I'm going to call these functions here in my view. So I will go in the parent component and I'm going to create the same exact function right here. And I'm just going to print here the trigger parent. All right, so here trigger parent. So when it's loaded the first time, so see the trigger parent will trigger a couple of times because of the view is loading here. All right, the view is loading. So I'm going to do exact same thing for child. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do a trigger child. I'm going to save this. It's going to give me an error, I guess. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to create the same exact function for a child. It's going to be trigger child. It's going to work and it's going to print bunch of parent child and trigger child. So this is the default way. And also, as you guys can see, if I change my ng model, which is a two-way binding, then it also trigger this method here. It also triggering the method on a view here, right? If I refresh this and if I do it, then it's going to trigger every time. But we are not using any of the parent and child data to reflect, to change or do anything. But even I haven't used this parent or child will trigger this kind of event here. So this is a default one. The Angular will use the change detection strategy default version. So whenever you change an ng model or promise stuff like that, then it will trigger any events which are triggering, which are registered on the parent or child. And to disable this, we should use the change detection strategy on push, which is we're gonna tell when you should re-render the view. So here, so if I say change detection strategy, change detection, and if I say change detection strategy, which is not default, on push, on parent, now if I put any of the event, then it doesn't even trigger. It does trigger it first time because it's initiating the class, but if you change this in ng model, it doesn't trigger. The reason behind is we use this. So, which is good. So now let's say inside the parent, if I use some kind of async call, so for now I'll just use a set timeout. So after 2 seconds, I want to print something on view. So I'll just say that this is a parent food. I don't know. Parent food is going to be empty here. I'm going to make this as an array. And I'm inside the set timeout, I'm going to print the test. All right, this should be this. So now after 2 seconds, this class variable is changing with the test. So now I want to print that here. All right, I want to print it here. So this is my variable. So if I save it, reload it after 2 seconds, it doesn't print. It does not print my array. If I disable this, then after 2 seconds, it's print here, test, because the default is whenever I change ng model, it's also going to print this function. It's going to also call this method, but it's gonna work our all the async call which is inside in this component, parent component, because in default, Angular detect these changes and it will show it in a view. But if I use my own change detection strategy, then Angular disable that and it doesn't know any data, any model or any class variable, it's been changed. So we have to let them know by manually. So to do that, we will use the change. I'll create a CD and it's a change detector ref. So if I use the change detector ref and if I tell that, okay, so when data is loaded, now I have to change in my view, then we could use the mark for check. So now whenever data is changed, it just print me a test here. So now the Angular knows it, but it doesn't trigger any of the event if I change any model as well. But it will only trigger when we tell the Angular. All right, this is a one way. But if I disable this, then what happen is if I disable this too, as you know, it's gonna detect, and also it's gonna whenever I change any model, it's gonna trying to trigger an event as well. All right. But if I use the change detector ref, then I could use something called detach. If I use a detach, then it, it's exactly the same thing as change detection strategy on push. All right. So if I click something here, if I change the ng model, it doesn't change anything here. And it doesn't give me the set timeout, the async call, and it doesn't refresh my view as well. So if I use this as constructor, the test, then it's gonna give me, we will tell this component exact same thing as on push. We'll tell them, okay, we're gonna use our default version. And when the data is changed, then we will tell that, okay, now you need to change in view. So we will tell them that detect changes. So if I do a detect changes, now you will see a test here, but still if you type it here, you will not, it will not trigger any of the event. Okay, so another important things right here is if I use a change detection strategy on parent, then the child will also, it will block it because the parent has a child, so it doesn't go in a tree structure. It will use the default, not default, the our version, which is on push on parent, and yeah, it will also not triggering any of the event on a child. So that's why if I print this, then even though I'm using a change detection strategy, which is cd detach on parent, if I go in child, I haven't used anything, but it doesn't trigger because parent blocked that. All right. So this is I have already spoke about the change change detect detect sorry, detect changes, detach here, and the another one function I'm going to talk. The last one is reattach. So there is something called reattach as well. So reattach is a standard uh, Angular, what Angular use. If I do reattach and if I comment this out, then reattach is basically it will reattach the standard version, standard one, which the Angular provided. So when we should use a reattach is whenever we get some kind of data in here, like an input data. Let's assume I get some input field here from my app.component, and the input is a value. And if the value has, we can validate here in constructor. If the value has something, all right, if the value has something, then only use the cd.detach. Otherwise, use the reattach. And if now the value doesn't have anything, that's why it's calling the standard one. If I put the value input value, or it's coming from app, or it's coming from directly from here, now this will use the standard one, the detach, our own one. So if I change something, then it will not work. The test is work because I detach here the changes. So hopefully this video will help you guys to understood the change detection strategy on Angular. And if I'm going to create a more videos on Angular, React, or any of the programming tech which is available in the market. So please do subscribe and like my videos, and thank you very much for watching this video. Bye for now.